It was a clear morning when the first ship appeared. There was no warning, no sign of what was coming. The calm skies were suddenly pierced by the deep, rumbling hum of something far beyond human understanding. At first, no one noticed. It was so small, like a flicker on the radar. An anomaly, a dot barely visible among the vastness of space. But that flicker soon grew into a massive shadow, darkening the sky above Earth's largest cities. In New York, people had just begun their day, walking through streets lined with towering skyscrapers, not yet aware of the danger. In London, morning commuters boarded the subway, unaware that the world was about to change. In Paris, children played in parks, unaware that in just a matter of minutes, the world they knew would be turned upside down. It started as an ordinary day, but it wouldn't end that way. Across the globe, military radars picked up something strange. The first ship, massive, dark, and shaped like nothing anyone had ever seen, was descending from space. It moved at incredible speed, defying every known law of physics. Air defense systems were scrambled, but the aliens didn't care. They moved with precision and utter control, effortlessly avoiding the attacks that were launched from Earth's defense systems. The first ship landed in Paris, blocking out the sun with its colossal size. People stood frozen, staring at the impossible. There was no warning, no announcement. The ship just hovered, an indomitable wall in the sky. No alien signals, no words from the invaders, just silence, broken only by the hum of the ship's powerful engines. As the people below watched, terrified, more ships appeared, hundreds, thousands. They filled the skies. Each ship was even larger than the last. They circled the globe, positioning themselves over Earth's largest capitals, casting long shadows across the land. Every city was under siege. Back at the United Nations, an emergency session was immediately called. World leaders gathered in a panic, communicating over video feeds as the ships continued their descent. President Maria Alvarez sat at the head of the table, her face pale but resolute. There were no answers yet, no understanding of what was happening. The only thing anyone knew for certain was that Earth was under attack. "What do we know?" she asked sharply, looking at her military and intelligence officers who were frantically reviewing their data. One of the officers, Colonel Martin, spoke up. "Ma'am, the ships are not responding to any of our communication attempts. They're emitting a strange electromagnetic pulse that seems to be jamming all our communications and defense systems. Our missiles and jets can't reach them, and our satellites are down." The president's face tightened. "Are we completely blind? Do we have nothing that can stop them?" "We're working on it. But for now, there's nothing we can do," Colonel Martin replied, his voice filled with frustration. At that moment, a voice echoed through the conference room, a voice that wasn't from Earth. Humans. The sudden voice broke through the confusion, cold and mechanical, but unmistakably intelligent. It boomed from hidden speakers that hadn't been noticed before. The room fell silent. "Your world is ours. You cannot escape. Resistance is futile," the voice declared, echoing in the tense air. It was the voice of the invaders, cold and emotionless. President Alvarez stood, her fist clenched tightly on the table. "What do you want from us?" she demanded, though she knew the answer before it was spoken. "Power. Domination." The voice, however, didn't respond to her question. Instead, it simply continued. "We have come to take what is ours. Surrender now, or face annihilation. There is no negotiation. There is no mercy." The silence that followed was deafening. The world held its breath, waiting for something, anything, that could change the tide of this unprovoked invasion. But nothing came. Back in the command center, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. General Marcus Holt stood over a set of screens, watching helplessly as the alien ships hovered above Earth's population centers. Their movements were methodical, as if they were calculating every move, every response. "We need to stop them," General Holt said grimly. turning toward the gathered officers. "Do we have any viable options left?" "No, sir," one of the engineers replied, shaking his head. "All systems are down. Their technology is unlike anything we've ever seen. We've lost control of all military communication networks, and our countermeasures are ineffective." Meanwhile, the rest of the world's population watched helplessly, some frozen in fear, others in disbelief. News outlets were flooded with reports from every major city as the ships hovered ominously above the rooftops. Social media exploded with panic as people tried to make sense of what was happening. In New York, one person who hadn't yet heard of the attacks was John Harris, a man who had just finished his shift at a local diner. As he walked out into the street, he saw the crowds gathered around their phones, looking up at the sky in disbelief. "What's going on?" John asked, approaching one of the people nearby. You haven't seen the news." The person stammered. "There are ships, alien ships, hovering right over us. It's happening. We're being invaded." John looked up to see what they were talking about, and his heart skipped a beat. Over the city skyline, the ships hung like a dark, impenetrable mass. "What are they waiting for?" he muttered under his breath, his voice thick with disbelief. At the UN, the leaders knew they had to act fast. But even as they scrambled to come up with a strategy, it was clear that time was running out. There were no answers, no solutions to the nightmare they were now facing. The world was on the brink of collapse, and every moment felt like an eternity. But humanity, for all its flaws, would not go down without a fight. The next move would be crucial. What would they do next? Would Earth surrender, or would they stand united, ready to face the invaders who had threatened to take everything from them? The siege of Earth had begun, but the story was far from over. The world was on edge. Every passing minute felt like an eternity as humanity watched the alien ships hover over their cities. The tension was thick, and fear gripped the hearts of millions. People huddled together in their homes, their eyes glued to the news screens, waiting for some kind of response, some sort of miracle. But nothing changed. The silence from above was deafening. It was as though the invaders had already won, and Earth had no say in the matter. President Alvarez stood in the command center, her face drawn tight with stress. She paced in front of a large holographic map that displayed the positions of the alien ships. They were scattered across every major continent, casting long, eerie shadows over the cities beneath. The first wave of attacks had already left devastation in their wake. Paris had been hit hardest, with massive portions of the city reduced to rubble, its famous landmarks obliterated in a matter of hours. London, New York, and Beijing had all suffered similarly. The alien ships didn't need to fire a single shot. Just their mere presence was enough to send entire nations into chaos. "How long do we have?" President Alvarez asked, her voice low and tight. She turned to General Holt, who had been monitoring the enemy fleet's movements nonstop. "We don't know, Mom," Holt replied grimly. "The ships are not attacking at full force yet. It's as though they're waiting for something. But it's only a matter of time before they begin." He turned to the tactical officer, who was busy working the computers. "Any response from the Xorvians yet?" Holt asked. The officer looked up, shaking his head. "No, sir. We've been broadcasting every possible message. We've tried everything from military codes to diplomatic pleas, but there's no reply. It's as if we don't exist to them." President Alvarez clenched her jaw, frustration building inside her. "We can't just wait here and do nothing. We need a strategy. We need to know what they want. If they want Earth, then we need to let them know that Earth won't be taken without a fight." At that moment, the communications officer's voice cut through the tension. "We have a transmission coming through. It's a direct line. It's from the invaders." The room went silent. All eyes turned to the screen, which flickered to life. A static-filled image appeared, and through the distortion, a figure emerged. It was humanoid, but its features were inhuman. Sharp angles, glowing eyes, and skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light of the ship's interior. The alien spoke in a language no human could understand. It was cold, emotionless, and alien. But then the voice changed. It spoke in perfect English. "Humans, listen carefully. You are insignificant. Your world, your people, everything you hold dear is of no consequence to us. We have come for what is ours. Surrender now, and we will take your world without further destruction. Resist, and we will leave nothing but ashes in our wake. This is your only warning. Choose wisely ****. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. Everyone in the room was stunned. The invaders weren't here to negotiate, nor were they here to ask. They had made it clear. Earth was not theirs to control, and yet they were determined to take it. General Holt turned to President Alvarez. "What do we do now? If they're serious about destroying us, we're out of time." Alvarez's eyes hardened as she made a decision. She had seen the chaos that was unfolding, the helplessness of her people. She knew that the only way to survive was to show the invaders what humanity was capable of. Humanity's strength was in its resolve, the ability to fight against overwhelming odds. "We fight," President Alvarez said firmly. "We can't wait for them to destroy us. Prepare the world's defense systems. We'll use everything we have. But there's something else, something they might not expect. We're not just going to let them destroy our cities. We're going to give them a warning they can't ignore." Blake, the top strategist, looked up at her. "What kind of warning, ma'am?" Alvarez's gaze was cold, determined. "We're going to show them that Earth is not to be conquered. Humanity will fight back, and we will do whatever it takes to protect our home." Blake knew what she meant. Humanity had the potential for incredible destruction. Every human could be a soldier, every city a battlefield. The world's military might, though scattered, was still strong. But there was more. Humanity had something the invaders didn't expect: courage. "Start the global mobilization," Alvarez commanded. "Activate all reserves and bring in the secret weapons. We need every asset we can get." With a sense of urgency, the military team scrambled to activate Earth's hidden weapons: missile silos, experimental technology, and advanced defense systems, each one designed with the hope that they would never need to be used. Now that moment had arrived. On the other side of Earth, in the mountains of Switzerland, the scientists working on Project Titan received their orders. Project Titan was a last resort weapon, developed in secret to protect humanity from threats far greater than anything the world had ever faced. It had been designed to deal with an enemy like the Cthorvians, powerful, advanced, and relentless. But no one had anticipated that the time to use it would come so soon. Back in the command center, President Alvarez watched as the countdown for the activation of Earth's weapons began. Her hands were steady, but inside, she was unsure. Were these actions enough? Would the invaders see humanity's determination, or would they crush it beneath their boots? But then, as if the universe had answered her question, a new signal blared across the command center's monitors. The message was a distress signal from Mexico City, the first city to fall under direct attack. It was clear and to the point. Earth's cities were crumbling, but humanity's will to fight was just beginning. And with that, Earth's fate was sealed. Humanity's response had begun. The invaders would soon realize that they had underestimated Earth. The tension was palpable. Earth had been struck hard, but there was something stirring in the hearts of humanity. As the invaders' ships loomed over the world's capitals, ready to destroy everything in their path, humanity was not lying down in defeat. Instead, something far stronger than fear was rising: resilience. Across the globe, the signs of Earth's defiance began to show. In the face of destruction, people began to rise, not with weapons, but with hope. From every corner of the planet, military forces were mobilized, hidden assets unlocked, and Project Titan, humanity's last hope, was activated. A secret weapon that could turn the tide of this war, if it worked. No one knew what would happen when it was deployed, But one thing was clear: Earth was not going to surrender. Back in the command center, President Alvarez watched the screens anxiously as Earth's forces began assembling. The Xorvian ships continued to hover in the sky, their massive forms blocking out the sun. No human force could reach them, and their weapons had yet to fully be unleashed. The invaders were playing a strange game of waiting, as if they were testing the limits of human resistance. "Sir, we've received a transmission from the Xorvians again," one of the officers said, interrupting the tension-filled silence. The words echoed through the command center, sending a wave of nervous energy through the room. "Put it on screen," President Alvarez ordered, her voice steady but firm. The transmission flickered to life once more, and the same cold, emotionless figure appeared on the screen. This time, however, the alien's tone was different. There was something almost amused in its voice. "Humanity, you continue to resist, but your actions are futile. You have no chance against us. Your weapons, your armies, none of it will make a difference. You cannot stop what is inevitable. Surrender. We will take Earth, and your destruction will be swift. This is your final warning, ****. The alien's voice was chilling, and the screen cut off abruptly. It had issued an ultimatum, as expected. But instead of fear, the transmission only deepened humanity's resolve. President Alvarez stood tall, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "They underestimate us," she muttered to herself, her words echoing through the room. "They think we'll just fall, but they don't understand what makes us human." General Holt, standing beside her, clenched his fists. "We won't fall, ma'am. We'll make sure they regret underestimating us." The plan was in motion, but time was running out. The Xorvian ships had already begun to intensify their presence. They had begun testing Earth's defenses, launching small attacks on major cities just to test the world's responses. There was no telling what the next move would be, but the clock was ticking. If humanity couldn't strike back soon, the invaders would overwhelm them. At the Project Titan facility, deep in the mountains of Switzerland, the team of scientists had just completed their final checks. Titan, the world's most advanced weapon, was ready. A massive energy-based cannon, it was designed to harness the power of Earth itself, a force that could rival the firepower of the alien fleet. Dr. Elena Rivas, the lead scientist, wiped the sweat from her brow as she gave the final order to activate the weapon. "We're ready." As the massive cannon powered up, General Holt watched from the command center. His gaze was filled with anticipation and dread. Titan had never been used in battle before. No one knew if it would work. But it was their only chance. "We're about to make our move," Holt said. "Activate the weapon." The ground beneath them shook as Titan came online. Massive cables and conduits hummed to life, drawing energy from the planet's core. The cannon's energy reserves surged as the power built up, ready to unleash its destructive force. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the signal to fire. The Xorvian ships remained motionless above the cities, as though they were waiting for the moment to strike. But then, suddenly, something changed. The Xorvian ships began to move, almost as if they had sensed the activation of Titan. The lead ship, the largest of them all, shifted position, and for the first time, it fired a single shot. The beam of energy ripped across the sky, slamming into the Earth's surface with a deafening roar. The ground quaked beneath the force of the impact. The blast was so intense that it leveled entire buildings in its path. The shockwaves were felt worldwide, and panic spread like wildfire. The Xorvians had struck, and they had shown their power. Target locked. Dr. Rivas' voice rang out through the comms, but there was no hesitation. The cannon was ready. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, boom. A blinding flash of light shot from Titan, a beam of concentrated energy more powerful than anything the Xorvians had ever seen. The beam cut through the air like a spear, striking the lead Xorvian ship with a massive explosion that rocked the skies. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the Xorvian ship, once towering and invincible, began to fall. Pieces of it broke off as the explosion tore it apart. The ship spiraled toward the ground, a massive explosion at its core, marking the end of its reign over Earth. The room fell into stunned silence. "We did it," General Holt breathed, his eyes wide with disbelief. But it wasn't over yet. As the lead ship fell, the rest of the fleet immediately responded. Their energy weapons flared, sending a barrage of beams toward the Earth's surface. The war had just escalated, but humanity had shown that they could fight back. With Titan's power, Earth had struck its first blow, but the invaders would not surrender easily. As the alien ships regrouped and began retaliating, President Alvarez turned to her team with a single resolute order: "We're not backing down. This fight is just beginning." The skies above Earth were now filled with a violent storm of energy. The first victory had been exhilarating, but the invaders were not backing down. The sudden collapse of their flagship had shaken them, but it hadn't broken them. The remaining Xorvian ships, now fully aware of humanity's strength, turned their weapons on Earth with a new intensity. The battle for survival had become more dangerous, and humanity's resolve was about to be tested like never before. In the command center, President Alvarez stood, watching the holographic displays of the war unfold. The lead ship's destruction had temporarily disrupted the alien fleet, but now the Xorvian forces had regrouped, and they were coming at full force. The remaining ships had begun to target Earth's military bases, obliterating defenses one by one with their advanced weaponry. Major cities were already in ruins, and Earth's defense systems were being overwhelmed. Time was running out. General Holt stood at her side, his face grim. "They're not pulling back. They're pushing harder than ever before. We have to act fast. If we don't deploy our remaining weapons, they'll break through and destroy everything." Alvarez nodded. "We knew this wasn't going to be easy, but we can't let them think we're finished. We have one more card to play, the second phase of Project Titan. It's untested, but if it works..." She paused, her eyes focused on the projection of Earth's remaining defenses. The clock was ticking, and every second that passed brought them closer to the point of no return. "Activate it," Alvarez commanded, her voice cold and unwavering. "It's time." The countdown for the next phase of Project Titan began. This was no longer just about advanced weaponry. This was humanity's ultimate response, a new generation of weapons powered by an energy source unlike anything the Xorgians had seen before. They were a force designed to completely level the playing field, capable of turning the tide of the war in one final blow. Dr. Rivas, back at the Project Titan facility deep in the mountains, had been working on this new phase for years, long before the invasion had even begun. But now, with Earth's survival hanging in the balance, the weapon was about to be tested in real combat. "Prepare Phase 2. Full power to the core," Dr. Rivas ordered. Her hands flew across the control panels, the lights of the facility flickering as energy surged through the cables. The hum of the machine was deafening, its power ready to burst forth. Back in the command center, the clock was ticking. The tension was unbearable. The Xorvian ships were closing in on Earth's remaining defense lines, their weapons ready to fire. Cities were being wiped out at a staggering pace. There was no more time for hesitation. And then the alarm sounded. A massive surge of energy pulsed through the planet, a wave of raw power that shook the very foundations of the Earth. The lights in the command center flickered, and for a moment, it felt as though the world was holding its breath. "Phase 2 is online. We're ready, Mom," Blake, the top strategist, reported, his voice sharp. "Fire it." Alvarez's voice was resolute, steady. There was no turning back now. The moment of truth had arrived. A flash of light erupted from the depths of the Project Titan facility. The ground shook as the new weapon unleashed its energy, an intense wave of concentrated power that shot into the sky, tearing through the atmosphere with the force of 1,000 storms. It split the clouds above, its sheer brilliance lighting up the world like a second sun. On the Xorvian ships, a terrifying realization began to settle in. The energy beam grew larger, stretching toward the lead ship, the flagship of the invader fleet. It was impossible to ignore. The beam hit the Xorvian ship with the force of a comet, cutting through its hull as though it were paper. A massive explosion followed, and the flagship disintegrated in a spectacular fireball. The rest of the Xorvian fleet faltered for a moment, caught off guard by the intensity of humanity's counterattack. But it wasn't over yet. The remaining Xorvian ships retaliated with a vengeance, their weaponry fired at full power, beams of energy that tore through Earth's last remaining defense lines. Yet humanity wasn't finished. With the launch of Phase 2, the Earth's defenses rallied, and the remaining hidden assets activated. Missile silos, orbital weapons, and secret technologies that had been kept in the shadows for years were unleashed. Humanity's response was now a flood of firepower, crashing into the Xorvian fleet. General Holt watched the monitors, his heart pounding. They've underestimated us. This is it. They thought they could wipe us out, but they didn't know what humanity was capable of. We're hitting them from all sides. The invaders, realizing the full scale of Earth's resistance, tried to regroup, but the damage had been done. Ships that had once seemed invincible were now falling, their energy shields breaking under the intense barrage. The human response had crippled their fleet, and with every passing second, the invaders were losing their grip on Earth. As the Xorvian forces scrambled to regain control, Alvarez stood tall. She watched as the last remnants of the alien fleet began to retreat, their once powerful ships now battered and broken. They had come to conquer, but they were now fleeing in disgrace. This is not the end. Alvarez's voice rang out in the command center, her words filled with determination. This is a warning to anyone who believes Earth is easy prey. Humanity will not be conquered. Phase 2 had worked. The Xorvian invasion was repelled. The battle was far from over, but humanity had shown the invaders something they had never anticipated: the strength of unity and the will to survive. President Alvarez turned to the screen, the words that would resonate through history already forming in her mind. Humanity is not defeated, and Earth will not fall. As the alien ships retreated and Earth's skies slowly returned to their natural state, the question remained: would the invaders learn from their defeat, or would they return to finish what they had started? The future of Earth was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity would never back down again. Earth's resilience had been forged in the fires of war, and it would stand strong against whatever came next.